Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Spawncast episode 368. Oh, good. The fade worked. All right, good. I'm like seconds behind. It's like delayed, so I just took a chance on that one. Okay, good. How's everyone doing? It is good to be here tonight. We have OJ who's returning, which is awesome. Ryan's making a stop back in, and Evan's here too.
Yep.
This would be a good night. We might even have another guest randomly pop in halfway through that's been in and out of the podcast here and there, so you just keep an eye out for that. But we do have a lot to go over tonight, so I'm excited. Let me go around here formally introducing people. We have OJ returning to the podcast.
Yeah, good to be back. I was at a wedding, my brother's wedding, so good to be back and talking about video games. Spawncast pre-show was fun as well, so yeah, it's good to be here. Good to see all you guys once again too.
We got Mystic Ryan back with us again tonight.
Thank you for having me, John. Happy to be here.
We have big news too. We're gonna be sharing that soon. But we did come up with the name for the podcast. We're not sharing it yet, but we did come up with the name. We figured it out.
It's figured out.
Why haven't you shared the name yet? Is Nintendo Prime watching or what? I'm just joking, bro. I'm just messing with you, brother.
It took us a bit to figure it out. Believe it or not, a lot of the PlayStation names are taken. And
we had some
said,
bangers.
There was one that was really good that I think we returned to a section. We talked about it, but we weren't allowed to do any kind of litigation or anything, so we kept it straightforward. I think we figured out one that is going to pay homage to an older system and stuff. It's I think it's exciting, so I'm looking forward to that. So you keep an eye out in the coming weeks. I think we're going to have the announcement and then the launch of it, so it's gonna be fun. And then we have Evan. Evan's with us tonight.
Yep.
It's good to have Evan here. I do want to shout out the good folks over on the Spawncast Patreon. You can check that out down in the description below if you'd like to support the podcast and all the other shows happening here on the channels. We want to go over some of the producers here. Of course, John O, who will be heading out to Too Many Games. So we'll be seeing John O there. Actually, many of the people from the Patreon were talking about going to Too Many Games. So I think we're going to meet a lot of these good people here. It'll be a lot of fun. We have Joshua Butts, Mr. Joby, Justin Maverick, The Game Orb, and Trent A. So shout out to the supporters over there, helping out, of course. And I do want to point out we are missing Josie, MVG, Sean. Josie actually be back with us next week, so will MVG. So they had some prior engagements. Sean, he might just be, I don't know. He's doing something. Who knows? He's around.
Passed out on a couch or
I can't even say he's watching the Knicks because they're not on tonight, I don't think. So he's somewhere. Maybe he'll just randomly show up too. I don't know. So he was asking me about the show tonight and what we were talking about. So, but I think that's everything there. Yes. I also asked over on, by the way, it's X now. They actually changed the URL. It's no longer Twitter.
Really? Because when I click the Twitter link, it just goes straight there.
I think it's rerouted. If you go there,
I am.
They'll never get rid of the original one.
It says twitter.com up top. It hasn't changed.
Is anyone ever going to actually call it X across the board? Because I feel like everyone just majority calls it Twitter.
So I gave it a month, and then I was like, all right, I guess that's what it is. So I started saying it, and I'm like, this just doesn't feel right. So I just kind of go back and forth.
I do that too. I find myself even in the same video. I feel like at times even in the same segment, I'll call it X, then I'll call it Twitter, then I'll call it X, and I trip myself up. So
I just stopped calling it X. I just call it Twitter.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy that people are just like, no, we're just not gonna do this.
You can call it. I mean, if somebody says X, I know what it is. If somebody says Twitter, I know what it is. So that's what's important, right?
It's true.
Oh, Gene Parks in the chat. Shout out to Gene.
What's up, Gene?
He's playing Hellblade 2 right now. That's what he said. Yeah, that's good. We're going to do some Metacritic, I think, predictions for that one because I ran a poll and I got some interesting responses back for where the audience thinks it's going to place.
25. Wait.
Yeah, we have Nate is actually playing Hellblade 2 right now for Direct Xbox, so he'll be sharing his thoughts on that in the week coming up.
Cool.
Yeah, so we'll touch on that. We do also have, of course, Call of Duty is going into Game Pass, so a lot of discussion on that one. And I did put Assassin's Creed Shadows in here because the game I think is interesting to talk about, but wow, the the discourse online kind of blew up on that one.
There was no discourse online.
That was something else. So, but hey, it's the new Assassin's Creed game. It's gonna be a big release this year, so we'll get into that. We have Square Enix, who's going to be aggressively pursuing multi-platform support, and of course, Sony. They have their financials as well as a 2 CEO approach. So I'm curious actually on that one with Ryan's thoughts and some stuff we can bounce back and forth there. So we're gonna start right away with Call of Duty because that was one that I think was the most requested over on X, we'll say, where I asked people what topics they wanted us to cover tonight, and that one came up constantly. So this one's for X. We'll start with Call of Duty, which we did get a report from Wall Street Journal. Call of Duty 2024 is indeed going into Game Pass, and this was basically smoothing out a similar report from The Verge where it sounded like Microsoft was internally having discussions around the idea of it going in, and if it is I'll say good idea or maybe just viable idea with how expensive something like Call of Duty costs to make and the potential precedent they can set for their platform. If you put Call of Duty in once, you're going to put it in every year pretty much going forward for Game Pass. And this year apparently is going to be the next entry in the Black Ops IP. And that's pretty popular. So the question really comes down to, is this something that would move Game Pass, or is this something that, as people are saying, could potentially end up biting Microsoft in the end and potentially doing a lot of damage to them in terms of costs and it actually not really affecting Game Pass? Actually, I guess the other question is anyone going to be? I'm gonna download it on Game Pass at that point. I've kind of view Call of Duty almost as a yearly sports game now. It feels like where it comes out every year, and yeah, it might be discounted later on, but the fact that it's a yearly thing, it feels weird to have to buy it every single year.
Really, I feel like it's felt like that for a long time now.
It kind of has. I mean, back when they made that shift from like World War II-ish up to like current era and they did Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, things started to feel a little different between each iteration where it was like Call of Duty Modern Warfare and then we did get like Black Ops and all that. It did start to feel a bit different then for the yearly ones to where I'd look at Modern Warfare 2 and be like, okay, this is the one I want to get. But you're right. I mean, it has felt very similar recently. I will say that one because they do their showcase and people are like, yeah, it looks like Call of Duty to me. That's kind of it. That's like the description everyone comes up with. It's kind of a shooting gallery for a lot of the campaigns and then your set pieces. But I do wonder if this is something that Microsoft would regret in the future, or if they're seeing potential for maybe more monthly active users that they can then sell microtransactions to. Call of Duty is no stranger for that. They will sell you everything they can after you get in.
My thing is, so we know Game Pass is saturated on console. I mean,
Yes.
So in theory, the hope would be to move consoles for them, but also PC is where they're seeing the most like year-on-year growth for Game Pass. So I mean, ideally, you probably also want to. I mean, that's how the subscription's going to really meaningfully grow. So I feel like that's sort of the real risk factor there is everybody subscribing on PC and playing it that way. Because like, realistically, if we're talking about the sort of balance sheet here for how this is going to financially work out for them, I mean, this is sort of like even before the ABK deal closed, like this was the argument. Like, well, you can sell it on PlayStation, but Game Pass on Xbox. So Microsoft can have their cake and eat it too. Like PlayStation sales at $70 a pop are going to be, effectively paying out that sort of, potential loss of a sale on Xbox. But I would be curious as to what the number crunching is looking like on the PC side of things, because I think there's a lot of upside there. Maybe that's the conclusion they came to outside of simply trying to move more Xbox consoles.
Yeah, PC's strange because you got to get them off Steam to get into Game Pass, and many PC gamers do not want to get off Steam. Like, I think I saw Evan in the chat say, I've seen that Windows launcher. I don't want anything to do with it, even though it's built into your OS, right? Like it's already there. You have Windows, you have the storefront.
And it's garbage.
So that does kind of make it difficult then to, does that say RGT in the bath? Sean, are you in a bathtub with an electronic?
Yeah.
And why is the picture of John? Is that your
Well,
material?
why?
I don't want
Why did
I don't
you
wanna
think of me when you're in the bathtub right away to make it your profile?
I had to
picture?
look for a disgusting picture to put up. Sorry, the water's running right now myself.
Okay.
What the?
Hey, this is Saturday night. It's after 9 o'clock.
You eating
Like on
something in
TV
the
where
bath
you get away
too?
with more after 9.
You know he's got a sandwich in there.
Oh gosh. Yeah,
How
we'll
nice,
ask
John.
him if he's eating food in there too.
He dropped the thing into the freaking
No,
bathtub. It's over.
no. We'll check on RGT in a bit. Don't worry. We'll make sure everything's all right over there.
You think he used a bath bomb?
Oh. I think he's back again. He said the water was running. We'll check on it.
I'm on my phone, so
Oh, okay. You're on your phone. Okay. That's fine then. That's fine. All right. So okay. Call. I'm sorry. RGT in the bath just threw everything out of whack right there. Thanks, Sean. Thank you. All right. Well, uncharted territory. Okay. Call of Duty on Game Pass. My only thing, I thought about with this one, Warzone's already free, and I feel like there are a lot of people who don't even touch the multiplayer or the single player. They just play Warzone. So I know Call of Duty sells really well. I do wonder if people will just buy Call of Duty and not even touch Game Pass from it. So I guess in that case, Microsoft's fine with it. It's just it's an interesting. What the part that's really weird to me, and Sean brought this up, RGT in the bath. It's weird that people were unsure if this thing was going to go into Game Pass because it is a first-party Microsoft game, and they're all supposed to go into Game Pass. So, like, Call of Duty's on this level where people are like, maybe it won't go in. I don't know. It seems weird if it would. Does it? It seems like it should go into Game Pass.
Well, as right off the back of the report, I think is the primary discussion topic. Is that the report was they were considering maybe not doing it. That and I guess. Well, there's still the concept of we weren't necessarily sure if like Microsoft amended the agreement Sony had at the time for marketing rights. Because if you're, this was like what 2 weeks ago or something, we were speculating, or at least I was, that like I'm not sure if Sony would agree to the 10-year deal if they didn't at least get like, let's say, one more year out of that, where they get to have market alignment and also strictly saying like you can't be on Game Pass for this particular year. Like that was the last year. Otherwise, it would have been back up to agreement or negotiations before the whole ABK acquisition actually happened. So at least now we know there's definitely nothing happening there. Obviously, Sony lost that part of the agreement.
Yeah, I feel like the marketing's gonna be big for them too. Like that's something they're gonna put all over Game Pass, Xbox, Call of Duty. It's gonna be all over the place. They'll probably do a bundle with Call of Duty for the holidays, whatever they can to move. Apparently, the Xbox actually jumped up on Amazon a bit. People are pointing to that, but that could have been like a couple thousand systems or something that would have that effect. But still, I mean, that's going in the direction they want it to, as opposed to what they keep saying, which is that it's going to continue to decline. So it's an interesting case study and something I'm really curious to see what happens when Call of Duty does go into Game Pass. But they're going to have their announcement next month during their showcase. I assume this was marketing material that Wall Street Journal got a hold of early. Okay, there's Game Pass. There's that Call of Duty in the same slide. All right, there you go. It's in. So, we'll see. We'll see. I feel like I will download it on Game Pass, play some of the multiplayer, and then if I want to do Call of Duty anymore, it'll probably just be the like Warzone, which you'd have anyway. Maybe they tie stuff in that way. You have a Game Pass, you get different benefits for it. Sean, how you holding up over there?
I'm good. The internet's not great in here, but the water's finally done running. I think the problem with Call of Duty right now is just how stagnant it is. Like, I mean, we play it, it's fun, it's comfort food. But like, we really haven't seen like a substantial sort of change. I mean, now they're just going back and like, oh, we'll just remake the old ones. Like, I get it. It's a delicate balance between figuring out, how to appease the nostalgia versus how to, innovate. Because you don't want to go like that one. What was the one where it was like you could like run and jump off walls and stuff? Like I didn't like that one. So,
Oh,
you know,
I mean, we had like they got like parkour with some of the old Black Ops ones. That I remember, Infinite War was a whole thing.
yeah.
There's a lot. Yeah, I get what
So
you're
like
saying.
on one hand, I get it, but it's just becoming very, very repetitive, and it doesn't seem like there's many companies trying to, you know, get in that space anymore. You know, everything seems to be more, you know, 4v4 team based, or, you know, third person perspective, this, that, or the other. It's like, I wish someone would try to do something a little bit different and actually take advantage of the systems we have now instead of relying on the player bases of, you know, the PS4.
Sure. Yeah, that is a good point about Call of Duty. I mean, this last campaign was just really bad in the Modern Warfare 3, and then the thing still sells stupid amounts of copies. So it's just almost by default it's going to do well, which is a shame, because then you just how hard do you have to work to put this game out? I mean, you got to work hard, but like how many chances do you have to take, or do you fall into that kind of rut of just got to make sure it's good? That's it. We don't have to take it to the next level. So I would like to see Call of Duty could get innovative with things and come up with something new, but they seem pretty comfortable. So as long as they make it out every single year, they seem happy and content. So, but we'll see. I mean, they're going to have their showcase next month, and Call of Duty is going to have a large part of it, because they'll close things out into, I assume, a 10 to 15 minute gameplay session. So we'll see how it turns out. We're just going to go right to the Assassin's Creed stuff. We're just gonna get that out of the way now, because I do see people in the chat have been going back and forth about it as well here. So Assassin's Creed Shadows. I did want to ask MVG about this one. Unfortunately, he's not here this week, because it's him and Jordan are like the resident Assassin's Creed fans on the podcast. Jordan, anyone who beat Valhalla to me is a resident Assassin's Creed fan at that point. But Jordan and MVG, what's that?
Diehard fan.
Yeah. Jordan and MVG play them every single time they come out. They'll go through them and they'll talk about them here and there. But like Valhalla sounded like it almost broke them. Like that was such a long game, apparently. So I did like Mirage, though. I thought Mirage was pretty good. So, but Assassin's Creed Shadows is coming out November 15th. We had the reveal cinematic trailer. We still have no gameplay for this thing, by the way, but that was not at all what was being discussed. It is coming out on the Xbox Series, PS5, PC. There's no last gen version at all. So
what do you mean that
there we
wasn't
go.
being? That's what I talked about. I thought that's what everyone was debating. Was like, why is there no gameplay in this trailer? Why do you want $130 from me and you're not showing me gameplay? Show me some damn gameplay.
I think that's what gamers might have been talking about.
That was my first reaction.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of us were like, "Oh, no gameplay. Okay, I wonder what they're gonna do with this. Is it gonna be kind of like RPG, or how they gonna deal with that? Is it gonna what's
adventure?
What's the change off between the characters gonna be?
Yeah.
And cool, there's gonna be seasons and they'll affect things. That sounds neat, and that is not at all what was being discussed. Go ahead, Ryan.
My first tweet was Assassin's Creed Shadows debut trailer looks cool, but they showed no gameplay. But they're taking pre-orders. Not a big AC guy, but I'm looking forward to seeing more. I was like, oh, that's it. It was just like casual, there you go. It's coming out November 15th. And all of a sudden that got blown up into something completely different. That was my first tweet.
Doesn't Ubisoft always do this?
Yeah, they do it all the time.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't like it. I mean, I kind of hate this trend with Ubisoft. It's just like a complete nothing burger every time they debut a game. It's like, okay, we know what it is. It exists, but they're also like a leaking ship. So we always find out, principally like what exactly these games are going to end up being. But I don't know. Cinematic trailers are fine, but if they do this like with almost every game, don't they?
Yeah. So I guess they want to do this reveal ahead of Ubisoft Forward, which is in 3.5 weeks now. So they'll have Ubisoft Forward, and apparently this game will be there with gameplay, the whole thing. And I guess this is just like, for example, we'll probably other things at Summer Game Fest. We'll probably get some trailers ahead of any of that stuff happening if it's like a big reveal that they want to go more into there. But this was just kind of a way, I guess, for them to introduce it and then put the $130 edition in front of everyone right away. Pre-orders are open for a game you don't know necessarily how it plays yet. I mean, Assassin's Creed, we kind of have an idea, but there's some interesting twists in this one. So, of course, it is feudal Japan. Assassin's Creed finally going to Japan. People have been asking for it. Basically, I mean, I would say almost since the game's inception, way back when. The map is roughly the same size as Origins. It's a pretty big map. So it is going to be one of those Ubisoft checkbox kind of games, I'm assuming. There's two main characters. We have Naoe and we have Yasuke. And you can freely switch between them in the open world. So while they are going to play very differently, apparently, one being more stealthy and shinobi, the other one just being upfront with what looked like, I guess, a mace, just blasting people through a door. You can switch between them. Some quests will be like hard locked to a character. Others will be, you can just pick who you want and kind of approach it either way. And the game will progress through the 4 different seasons. They described it as if it's in the springtime and you have high grass, you'll be able to sneak through it. But if it's like wintertime, you can do things like hang off of icicles, apparently, that are very large and like frozen. So they had a few like things in there that would affect the gameplay. And you'd create your custom hideout. Assassination targets can be completed in any order. And 16 studios worked on this game. Ubisoft Quebec was the lead. They did Assassin's Creed Odyssey, by the way. So anyone out there has played Odyssey.
16 studios, you said?
Yes. So there was Ubisoft Quebec, and then 15 other studios within Ubisoft worked on this, including Osaka and Tokyo. So they have 2 studios there that worked on this.
Crazy.
And it's coming out November 15th, and gameplay will be Ubisoft Forward next month. It'll probably close out their event. Say like probably a good 10-minute gameplay chunk. I will say this. I like that Assassin's Creed is finally going to Japan. It's long awaited. I've played many games, obviously, that have taken place in Japan, kind of gone up alongside of this. And I've been ready for Assassin's Creed to make the move for quite some time. And it's finally happening.
John, I'll say it. I watched that trailer and I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. I have to play as this person, a woman.
I feel like I know you're joking. I know. I get the swerve. So we have 2 characters. Yes, we have. Yeah, I like how I hope your neighbors can hear you screaming a woman in your bathtub.
Yes, I was gonna say he's just yelling that in his bathtub.
It's so we have Yasuke and Naoe. Yasuke is a person who existed in history, and Ubisoft is going to have their own spin on the character. We've had many different iterations of Yasuke in different forms of media. There's an entire Netflix series you can watch right now for the character, where they also sort of take liberties and tell their own story with the character, who, granted, has very large periods of history where it's just very unknown what was going on with them. And they were in Japan for like a year and a half, I believe, or so. But I think in this case, Ubisoft most likely realized that if they go a more traditional route with this and they don't try something new, I think it could very well just end up feeling very much the same as, say, like a Ghost of Tsushima or something. I think this, looking at it from where we are right now with the cinematic trailer, we do need to see the gameplay and stuff. I think this is an interesting path for them to go, personally. I think this could be pretty cool. I don't really know how exactly Ubisoft is going to handle it, though. And that's my only concern. It's like, okay, Ubisoft, how's the story going to go? How's the gameplay going to look? And is it going to be one of those games where I'm going through it and I get that Ubisoft fatigue halfway through it? I'm like, I got to like struggle to get to the end. Because Valhalla, I mean, I tapped out maybe a little more than halfway through that game. It's like 40 hours in, and then Jordan was like, oh yeah, I spent over 100 hours in this game before I beat it. I was like, oh, all right, that's that.
Wasn't the game much smaller?
Which one? Mirage was smaller.
Right. But isn't the new one, the Shadows game, isn't that supposed to be smaller?
They said it was like a smaller area or something?
Yeah, it's same size as Origins. It should be smaller than Valhalla then, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and act like I know dick about feudal Japan stuff. I mean, if the game looks dope, I'll play it. I like Assassin's Creed games sometimes. Sometimes I think they're overdone. As far as the character,
You like 3.
No.
I remember that you like 3 and you like Black Flag, didn't you?
Black Flag is the fucking go. They should have stopped They should have just remade that and called it a day.
Well, they are. They are making it. It's next year, I think it's coming out, or year after.
Ubisoft's like one step above you or one step ahead of you, RGT. Don't worry.
Yeah, they're remaking it. Yeah, they are. Hey,
Well,
get excited.
Well, because I mean that game's fucking great, but like I don't really care either way. But I mean, if the character's written well, I'm not looking at it like a serious historical thing. Here's my thing. If people want to be like, that's kind of weird that they went with that character instead of a more established Japanese character, whatever. I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing to say. But when people, put a little bit of oomph into it, and it's just like, all right, we're fucking adults. We're supposed to be adults here. You can have a conversation. Don't get too far into your feelings and all that shit. Like, I don't think every single person who's like, oh, this is a strange character choice, I don't necessarily think they're all like being racist with it. But I definitely think there are some that are. So, I mean, welcome to video games in 2024. You got IGN writing articles about that Elder Scroll, that dude who beat Elder Scrolls. They're like, remember this motherfucker? It started a riot. It's like,
you mean Elden Ring, and that's Kai Cenat, right? Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't know.
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring. Yeah. But yeah, like posturing.
Well, I'm excited for the game, actually. Just seeing the cinematic trailer again, I gotta see the gameplay. I'm interested in the direction here for this one. Also, no one's talking about like Naue, her character, anything. She's a really good assassin. Apparently,
she's been
great
assassin.
Man.
I've even seen some people say, I can't play as a Japanese person. I'm like, dude, she's right there.
I did like her blade in the
She's so stealthy, everyone forgot.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, she's right there. Like, literally, there's been people saying, I can't play as a Japanese. I'm like, dude, no, she's definitely Japanese.
I did like her blade though. They showed in the right at the end of the trailer because they have the blade obviously comes out of like their wrist area on their clothes, and it pops out, and then it does like a right turn, and it hooks immediately, and they grab that. That was kind of cool. So I'm interested in how she's gonna play exactly as the shinobi. But would you Ryan? You play any of the Assassin's Creeds?
I just don't really have anything to say. I just don't care for this franchise. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, like
it dates back to what, like 07 or something?
First one.
None of them ever caught your eye?
No, I played the first one. I was like, this is kind of whatever. Put it down. I thought like, oh, that franchise isn't going to go anywhere. And like, boy, was I wrong. Yeah.
Well, after playing the first one, I would see why you would say that first one's actually trash.
Yeah,
like it's not good.
I've heard it gets much better, so I'm sure I'd like them. Like I don't mind like bog standard checklist games. I'm fine with them, so I'm sure I would like them. But it's like I've missed so many of them, and I just have no desire to jump into any new one that ever gets announced. But we'll see with this one. I mean, it does look. I like this. The sort of sales pitch, I guess, is definitely more unique, right? Because I guess everyone's been asking for them to finally go back to Japan, or go to Japan, I should say.
Yeah.
What about you like pirates? You like Pirates of the Caribbean and shit?
He's already trying to sell you Black Flags.
Bro, there's like you have a boat, but you can get off of it and like go to islands and like kill people, and there's like cool animals and stuff, dude. It's so good. And you do boat fight. Imagine Skull and Bones, but like good. And you could get off the boat, and there's like a story that's actually interesting and stuff, dude. It's fucking fire.
You can swashbuckle and everything. It's
great. I will say this though, right? Assassin's Creed 2 is a really big jump from the first.
It is.
Like,
it is.
Assassin's Creed 1 to 2. So I don't like 1, but I do like 2. I've played and beat 2, and it's 2's good. I think that one is still very playable, even though it's old, 360 game at this point, PS3 360. I think it's still very playable. In terms of how it, the gameplay and all that. I think it's good. So yeah, you might want to start there if you want to play a game. I mean, the Ezio, it's like that whole Ezio. How many games?
Trilogy. It was
trilogy.
Yeah.
I mean, those are all okay.
Brotherhood was okay. It had a bad ending.
I'd hold out for Black Flag, Ryan. Black Flag is very good. It is, and I think I feel like it's personally aged well enough, but the remake will probably take it to the next level since now we're seeing them move on from last gen.
The only problem with Black Flag is that there's just so much stuff. You might get that super Ubisoft fatigue. Assassin's Creed 2 kind of kind of confines it a little bit to where it's not just so much stuff, you know, and you can beat the game in a timely fashion. You're not always, oh, what about this? Oh, what about this? Oh, what about this? I mean, there is some of that in the game, but it's nowhere near as bad as Black Flag. But yes, there are a lot of cool parts about Black Flag, right? Like RGT was saying, like the boats and the ships and the exploration, and there's like underwater stuff, and there's all sorts of cool stuff in Black Flag. It's just a lot, you know. Whereas, you know, Assassin's Creed 2 is such a smaller, you know, and still good gameplay experience. So yeah, I mean, either one's fine, but I know for me, like, it was cool to actually play an Assassin's Creed. I remember to play because I beat it a while back. I think when it came out on Switch or something like that. And I'm like, hey, I beat this game kind of quick, or I played it and like got through it kind of quick compared to other Assassin's Creed games that I've played.
You know what's really interesting about this situation that I did it crossed my mind a little bit. We knew about this like a year ago that Yasuke was going to be in this game. It leaked out, and no one was really talking about it or angry about nothing. No back and forth. Nothing was happening
because none of these people Googled who that is. Like, they're like, oh, a Japanese man's going to be in there. Of course,
they thought it was a Japanese dude.
It was a little strange because we knew about this. I remember seeing it. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So they're gonna have two characters, and one is gonna be Yasuke, another one's going to be a native Japanese. They didn't say. I don't think they said if it was a woman or a man or anything. Then they said that there was one that'd be native, and then there'd be Yasuke. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
so the actual reports, the early on reports, like named what the protagonists were gonna be. That I didn't know. That's
yep.
That sort of just sheds more light on the sort of outrage surrounding this game. Yeah. It's just silly.
No, I've seen some of this stuff though. It's so funny. People are like, "Well, what if they put the game in Africa and the person wasn't black?" They're like, "There is a game in Africa." They're like, "Which one?" They're like, "It's in Egypt." They're like, "That's Africa."
Oh no!
And I'm like, "Oh god, these fans are dumbasses."
Well, yeah, I did see that too, where a lot of there were people saying that like each one has a character that's like native to the land. For example, in this case, they're like, dude, now he's on the cover. He's right there. But even you go back, like people were talking about like we talking about Black Flag. The character there isn't from the Caribbean, and in Valhalla, like Jordan's not here, but they're technically not from the land that you're spending the entire time exploring, and like so they've mixed it up before. This isn't new. I'm not sure if it's because they're pulling a historical figure and kind of putting a spin on them rather than create an original character, because that is something we've had. All these other assassin stuff, they're just like original characters that they create and try to make them fit into history at different times. But Leonardo da Vinci wasn't providing a flying.
He totally was. No, what are you talking about? I was reading the history book. Leonardo da Vinci absolutely provided flying devices, bombs, machines, and all that to some guy named Ezio.
Do they ever encounter actual historical figures? Is that how the franchise works?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, like in 3, for example, George Washington's there.
And so, like, even then, if they had an original black character and everyone's like, "Who is this guy?" Right? This guy isn't in history. He's not even yours. Like, then they start referring to the real guy. It's like, oh, if these games are known for, you know, meeting historical figures, then wouldn't one surmise oh, that's what the path they're going down?
Am I remembering correctly that Da Vinci was like the designer of some of the weapons for one of them? Like it was a famous artist. Yep. Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Yep. So I think people should be very critical of Ubisoft right now for other stuff. That's kind of the way, like their practices with the season pass, locking stuff behind that's happening with this game. The $130 edition. I think they're going to do like a early access period for the single player game. You also need to have the internet to install the game if you buy it physically. Probably because they didn't want to ship on multiple Blu-rays or like enough Blu-rays to cover the file size. Like there are so many things that you could point at, and it's like it just doesn't. This doesn't seem like the way to go with it.
Yeah, I was upset with the online thing, even though I don't even care for the franchise. But I'm just like, Ubisoft, you got to stop doing this. They've got such a bad reputation for this. They've got to stop.
Yeah, I feel like they're already 1 foot out the door for the digital like age. They're ready to go. It feels like they were talking about like trying to do all streaming stuff, and they're on board. Remember how on board they were with Stadia, where the first game I remember we tried in Stadia was I feel like it was Assassin's Creed Odyssey actually.
Yeah, I think they were. That was one of the headline games on that service.
they were desperate to try to get that, and it didn't work. So now they're like, we still got to make a Blu-ray disc. Come on, how many do we need to do? 1. All right, good. Make them download it. Whatever. So they had to come out and like correct that. Like, no, it's not always online. It's just when you install it. It's like, okay, just ship another
doesn't have to
Blu-ray.
be that way.
Come on, gosh, Ubisoft, you're selling a $130 edition. Gosh, come on.
Is the 131 at retail though? I thought that was only a digital.
I guess the digital deluxe, yeah.
Digital SKU, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm paying 130 at retail, I want the game on disc.
Right? Man, that's Ubisoft though. I'm curious if they're going to make this more of an RPG. So Ryan, the thing that has been bugging people with this franchise for a little while is they keep going more and more into like the RPG sector where you need to have a certain level to take on certain assassination targets. That's not how it was previously. And
so light RPG elements.
Yeah, well, it gets heavy RPG elements almost.
Oh.
And at one point, again with Odyssey, they had the EXP booster that you could buy for your single player game. And people were like, hold on, is the experience throttled so that we buy that? And people were like running full spreadsheets and numbers and stuff. So there's always the concern that Ubisoft tries to mess with some of the gameplay side to try to monetize it more. So
one might argue they want to maybe stick with that format so they avoid the comparatives between, say, Rise of the Ronin or Tsushima.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing there, because this game went into development forever ago. That's the other thing I don't think people realize. This isn't something they came up with last year. I mean, we're talking good chunk of a decade.
Foundationally, this thing has to be similar to other like it has to be. Right?
It's gone through many different iterations. They've played around with the characters. They played around with the time period and stuff. Like it's gone through a lot, and this is what they came up with in the end. So, and maybe they changed it up as they went along because of games like Ghost of Tsushima, of games like Rise of the Ronin, even like Neo with its gameplay and stuff.
Yeah, there's only so much you can change though once you're far along enough in development.
Actually, Yasuke's in. I think he's in both Neo games. From what I remember, fighting him in one of them.
He is.
He's
he's in Samurai.
Yeah, he is in there, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in Samurai Warriors too. He's in that game as well.
Yeah, that's like he's been in a lot of games, like at games, movies, like shows. So it's not new for him to necessarily be in this medium. It's new for Assassin's Creed technically, but that's yes, he's in both Neo games. Yeah, because I played Neo 2 last year. I think I played through that, and he was one of the bosses you would come across.
You played the PS5 version?
Yes, yeah, I got the double pack.
Yeah. I need to get that.
Yeah, it's very good. It's very good.
Yeah.
I
need to get back into those games.
So that's. I mean, I got to hold out judgment for when the game actually gets shown. But as for the direction, characters, and stuff, I'm intrigued. So I'm curious how that, because it seems like Naoe and Yasuke, just what they were showing in the beginning, didn't necessarily get along, and it looked like they were maybe going to come together as the game progressed. So I don't know. I'll be curious to see how that works out. But they got to pull me back in because they lost me with Valhalla. I like Mirage. But the last time I really got into a big open world Assassin's Creed, it might have been Black Flag. Because I went through Odyssey, and that was a struggle to get through. But
I've dropped every Assassin's Creed game since Black Flag. Pretty much, yeah. I don't think I've dropped every single one.
They just got bigger and bigger, and it was to the point where it was like, oh my gosh, it's going to take forever. Yeah. But I did just put just about 100 hours in the Rebirth, so I'm already kind of like open worlded out almost now, I could say. So we'll see how this one goes for me.
I'm Chad lead out, I'm not open world out. I'm
Chad lead out. Oh man,
yeah, I'm Chad lead out.
And Chadley just gets hate constantly. Gosh. Let's go over to Hellblade 2 Metacritic predictions. I thought this would be interesting because Will Kinney wrote in on Discord over on the Patreon and said, devil's advocate about Hellblade 2 30 FPS. As games get better and better looking like this, could a higher frame rate start to lead to some uncanny valley vibes? Seeing more and more realism at 60 to 120 FPS might oddly turn people off. I hadn't really thought about that, but people remember when The Hobbit came out and people said that looked weird at like 48 frames. I haven't really thought about the idea of if you got photorealism, if that would look weird at like 120 frames. No.
I feel like that's a tough conversation to have because I think the immediate answer would be like it's gameplay. You're always going to want at high frame rates. But if it really does look hyper realistic, then I don't know what to say on that. It would be a little polarizing if it really was like that good looking, but
Right. I mean, have to achieve probably even a level above where we are now for that to, I think, become a conversation. But still something interesting to think about over the next 10 to 15 years. All right, Hellblade 2 is out this week. Metacritic prediction time. So I looked on the first Hellblade, the first one, and the lowest score it got was 80? On the PS4 at an 81. That's on 71 reviews at an 81 on the PS4. So a fair amount. And then it went up from there with less reviews. Even like the Xbox One had 18 reviews, but an 88. So I'm going to stick with the most reviewed version of the game, which was the PS4 at 81. So Hellblade 2. Where do we think this is going to come in? Because I ran a poll and the majority of people think it's somewhere between 80 and an 85.
It's not a bad number.
No, somewhere in there.
I mean, 80s are good though.
No, they are.
Yeah, anywhere in the 80s is good. So
I kind of want to go like 84 on this one. As I'm kind of feeling that. I don't know. I feel like this game's going to look really good. I'm not playing it right now. Nate's playing. I'm not playing right now. But I feel like the game's going to look really good to a lot of people. I'm very curious about the gameplay. That's my thing. And the length of the game too. Because they already told us it's not going to be like a full length game necessarily in their mind. So that's the other thing that could cause some hiccups. But I feel like this will be a one of those bars that we hit for visuals where it's like, okay, this is like the top of the line right now. But
so the first game got like a low 80s on most platforms. I think it was 88 on Xbox One. So let's just say average low 80s. So probably maybe a little bit better, right? A little bit better than that one. So 80, mid 80s, low mid 80s again. 84, okay. 85.
Yeah, I would love for this game to come out and just blow everyone away and it be like a 91 or something. That would be, because I feel like that would be something that Microsoft kind of needs right now after a lot of the bad news that's been hitting them.
Yeah.
And people are still concerned about Ninja Theory, man. They are. People are worried. So I feel like although Hi-Fi Rush came out and did really well, and then in terms of critical reception,
no matter what they do,
the
studio's not safe.
It doesn't. The Game Pass doesn't support that type of game, right? I mean, it could if Microsoft wanted it around, but it doesn't really support that type of title.
I feel like it supports a game that does have like in-game spending, microtransactions, or something on the other side.
Oh yeah,
like
Game Pass always feels like the battle pass you pre-purchase. Like that's all it feels like.
Sure, because I'm this is one where I'm a little worried about that because they don't have a physical version of it. It's a $50 digital only version. And I feel like that Game Pass, they have to understand that it's not going to light up the sales charts. They need to understand that going in.
I don't understand where is the physical version? Like, how is this?
It is a little weird, right?
Whoa. Are we really humoring physical for this game?
Well, no,
Xbox.
The first one got a physical.
On multi-platform when they were independent. What are we doing here? They're at Microsoft Studio now.
Oh man, Ryan's just burying them immediately.
They're all going to get laid off when it's out. When it wins Game of the Year, that none of them are going to be able to go up and collect. It'll be
it's
great.
It's going to be like a 6-hour game. It's on Game Pass. Xbox is the most digital platform. There was no circumstance where this was getting a disc, unless they partner with, let's say, like Limited Run or something, which is what Hi-Fi Rush is getting.
You're $1 trillion company and can't make a disc. I don't understand.
You realize you save money when you don't print discs. And then
I do want one, OJ.
I don't want million, bro. They ain't saving nothing. What you mean?
It's more money
to them.
Money goes up.
Here, the ironic thing is, if this thing eventually ships on PlayStation, there's a better chance of it getting a disc there.
Probably will there.
Because then Limited Run would probably step in, and then they would also do an Xbox print.
Yeah. Probably.
But I think Xbox alone is not getting one.
I'll wait for that then. I mean, I don't. Like big games. Like I like to have a physical of the bigger games. Like it's cool to just have that. I know everybody, Xbox is all mostly digital, and I get that. But I don't know. I still feel that I should be able to just be able to buy a big game. I know it's not a normal big game. I get that, chat, everybody. I get that, but I still feel that if it's a big title like this, like the way that it looks and everything, you should be able to go to a store and buy the game. Like I don't think it's that big of a deal to not have a physical disc for this game. I mean, I think Hi-Fi Rush said the same thing about Hi-Fi Rush when it came out. In that game, obviously, graphics and all that very different. Pricing is different. It's $20 more or $20 less for Hi-Fi Rush when that came out. If you're not getting Game Pass stuff, but I don't know. I just feel like it should. But I get what Ryan's saying. Like, you're completely right, man. It's not like it's stuff that I already know, but it'd just be nice. But I get it.
I'd like it too.
We did have Ghost Tsushima that launched on PC, and I picked it up. I did. I really liked the game on the PlayStation 4, and then I played it also on the PS5 when they did like the director's cut of it. And I wanted to get it on PC because I wanted to test it on the Steam Deck OLED, just see how it would hold up there. And then I wanted to try it on my ultra wide monitor here because they said they did a lot for support there. This was Nix's who did this, right, Ryan? For this one, or at least they ran support and helped. Yeah, they got it done.
They fully did it, I believe. They ported over Sucker Punch's engine.
So I will say this. I think this is the best port they've ever done for Nix's. It's legitimately impressive in terms of the performance you get. So maxed out everything on like the ultra wide monitor I have here. I mean, this thing is like 120, 130, 140 frames, like just in the open world playing the game normally. And on the Steam Deck, I played around with settings, and what I did, because it's a 90 hertz display, I cut it down to 45 FPS. And the reasoning there is it'll be a bit more fluid because it's like half the refresh rate and everything. But it's a pretty consistent 45 frames on the Steam Deck OLED, and it tells me I get anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours of battery life playing it. So, and it looks pretty good. It's not like I'm killing the settings, or like they have FSR in there and they're able to do dynamic resolution on the Steam Deck to figure it out, but it doesn't look bad. The OLED looks really good with it because, of course, that game, if you walk out, whether it's at nighttime or even during the day, you get a lot of shadows and stuff on the grass and the flowers and stuff on the grass. It looks very, very good in motion, but I was blown away by the performance of this game on PC. Absolutely shocked, because I feel like we hear about some of these Sony PC ports and we've heard some horror stories with things like Last of Us. This is not one of those. So I think they're getting the pipeline figured out. This to me is a good sign for Sony to see this kind of a port.
Well, Last of Us was done in-house in collaboration with Iron Galaxy, so I think that one's maybe more on them. Same with Guerrilla and Ben Studio for Days Gone. Like, once Nix has stepped in, that's when it really sort of cleaned up quite nicely, it seems.
I think it's doing fairly well on Steam as well, too. Because the last I looked, it was just over 70,000 concurrent players. This was like an hour ago.
Yeah.
So it does seem like people are buying the game full, like at that $60 price on Steam. Like it's a pretty consistent thing right now. People
number one
seem to
top
get a kick out of
selling.
it. Oh, there you go. Yeah. Like I posted that opening on X and in widescreen. Man, that is something else in widescreen. It is really cool, like the ultra wide where you're right, where they have the heat with the title. That's a really good title card that they did there, the transition. So it looked awesome. I know, Evan, you said you weren't interested in it. If it goes on sale, I would recommend it. I think it's pretty cool. It's a cool game.
Okay.
Okay. There you go. Evan's excited.
I've seen the ending. I've seen most of the fights. I don't.
Oh man.
Why? You just looked them up?
No, I was just watching people stream it.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
I don't. It's not gonna be surprising to me.
Well, gameplay's still. I mean, the gameplay's good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good samurai Tenshu style game. Yeah, it's fun.
I gotta replay it. I played it for like 20 hours, and then I got kind of felt like the Assassin's Creed situation. But I need to buy it again on PS5 and give that one a shot.
Yeah, you get 60 frames on the PS5.
Yeah, so I'll probably do that. But my backlog never ends. It just keeps growing.
They did. I believe they took the cutscenes and turned them into like real time for the PS5 as well, so they're able to get the lip syncing correct with a lot of the stuff. With this version, though, on the PC, they shift from pre-rendered cutscenes or cutscenes they've already done to gameplay, and those cutscenes look terrible. Like, they look so bad. You can tell it's some lower resolution and stuff. And it's really funny because back in the day on the PS1, when you got to the cutscene for like a Final Fantasy, it was a big deal. It looked incredible. And they went back to gameplay and it looked terrible. We completely reversed roles for that now. It's really interesting. But I do recommend it on PC. It's a good port. It's a very good port. I think it would even work on like weaker hardware, no problem. So, hey, Nix's is coming through. All part of the plan. All part of the plan. Speaking of plans, Ryan, we had some Sony news.
Had a lot of it this week.
New leadership there. Oh, and then also I think I pulled up I think I have some of the numbers here too. We do have new leadership though. We have they've decided. Okay, so Ryan, they decided to split up the CEO role that Jim Ryan originally had, which is interesting on its own. That they decided that they want to have two different people running the show technically there in collaboration, and of course they're also working with Totoki, who's also running things, of course, above them. But I had this written down here, and I want to make sure I pronounce this correctly, I guess. Well, obviously Herman Holst, but the other one is Hideki Nishino?
Hideaki,
thank you. Hideaki Nishino. Okay. So he's appointed CEO of SIE's Platform Business Group, and Herman Holst appointed CEO of SIE's Studio Business Group. So what did you make of this move, Ryan, to have two people come in, split up the CEO position like that?
So I don't think anybody expected the two CEO setup. The name that I thought was going to get it was their SVP head of marketing right now, which is Eric Lempel. Because like an SVP was going to get this position. And so these two were kind of both SVPs. So that's not entirely surprising. I just didn't think either of these two would be the person to get the job. But I guess in the context of it being split up, that makes a lot more sense. And having said that, I'm generally thinking it's a good idea because these two are doing this. They were already doing these jobs, right? So Herman Hulse was the head of PS Studios. Hideaki Nishino was the SVP of Platform Experiences. So they've literally got the same jobs, essentially. What's happening here is that they're just getting more leverage and control over their own disciplines and taking on a few more responsibilities. And I would presume maybe the organization took some feedback from Jim Ryan, which was simply the management of having to, coordinate and fly between all these teams. Because we're thinking about how Jim was living in Europe, but he's got to fly to Japan for Sony corporate. That's the hardware team. Then he has to fly over to the headquarters of SIE in California. And so you've got this sort of divide and conquer setup where Hideaki can manage the, just home base Japan. Herman can fly between Europe and the US, and that's where most of their studios are. And he's managing first party teams anyway. So I feel like it's a very lean decision, like reducing a lot of friction on like very big decision making. They don't have to report to Jim anymore because they're, they've essentially got his job. Now they're reporting to Hiroki Totoki. So I think it's actually a good move, especially because they both already had these jobs, right? So nothing's really going to change at all. Like what PlayStation's kind of doing right now is like, this is a very smooth transition because especially for Herman managing the first party teams, he's had it since 2019 now at this point. And usually with like these big executive shifts, games take 5+ years to make. So it's like, you can't say, oh, like this is what Jim did, but it's like, well, he stepped into a bunch of games that were already in development and things like that. Right. So it's
got him to the finish line.
Yeah. So it's like, now we'll get a better picture of what kind of PlayStation we'll get with Hideaki and Herman. If that's a good thing remains to be seen, but I would think it's actually a decent, like a good decision, especially for Herman. This was somebody that was basically a studio manager at Guerrilla. I mean, he climbed the corporate ladder pretty quick,
right? Yeah,
very quick.
So.
But I guess they like him. I don't know. I mean, I've only heard good things about him. That and Hideaki. So, from what I'm seeing, it sounds like this was probably a good move.
Okay, because they also mention Herman Holst with his business operations at SIE's first-party content, as well as IP expansion opportunities through PlayStation Productions. So it does seem like Herman Holst will be very, very busy on that side. And it would make sense to have Hideaki Nishino, as you mentioned, in Japan, doing a lot of the hardware stuff, as they talk about here. But then PlayStation Productions, that almost feels like that's going to really be it's a whole thing to deal with, too, where they're expanding these IPs out to shows, movies. I mean, they're doing a lot with that right now, as we're seeing. So that's like going to become its own like branch completely of Sony. So it's interesting to see how they're trying to kind of divide this up. With
I will say the one thing that I'm still wondering what the thought process was is that Hideaki Nishino will be doing third-party relations. So actually, Herman's only doing strictly first-party games and first-party IP. So I'm just a little curious as to what the thought process was, because maybe ideally would want one man to just oversee the entire games segment, but I don't know. That we'll see what happens there.
Maybe they're thinking about just their first party teams just getting more focus, because it's going to hinge on these projects are taking so long to do. It's like we got to make sure that they are good.
That's what I'm guessing, right? Why they did that, because third party, obviously, you're not developing that yourself per se. I mean, you might be working with some of them, but especially like maybe wasn't there like a Ryan? There was a big transition from Jim Ryan. He pushed the live service. I think didn't they say they're going to reconvene on that or change up that big live service, so they're going to scale that down a little bit.
Well, a lot of them were like falling behind, because they wanted to ship like 12 of these by fiscal year 25, which was like not going to happen. So like, like half of them are delayed. We already know like 2 or 3 of them are also canceled now at this point. So, that's probably just a consequence of like this stuff's hard to do. But this is what I'm saying. Like Jim, when he became CEO, I mean, a lot of things were already in motion. So, I mean, I'm sure he was absolutely pursuing live service in a very big way, but I'm sure the company had a lot of pressure, maybe mid PS4 cycle when live service was really starting to take off, where it's like, maybe we should go back to this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we'll see how that works. I mean, this would be a more long-term vision in place, since I assume Jim Ryan took over CEO knowing that he probably had a couple of years before he's going to retire anyway. So as you said, get him to the finish line for some of these games, and then probably have Herman Holst come in with these first party studios and keep on moving. So we did have some financials for them as well, Ryan, which there were some interesting things in here. I noted some of the stuff down. So they sold 20.8 million PS5s during the fiscal year, and that 200,000 off, which technically sure it's a miss and all that, but that's 20.8 million. That is a lot of systems for Sony specifically when compared to their past. Like we're talking, oh gosh, we're going back to PS2 era for something like that. I don't know if they ever sold that many in the PS4 era, did they?
Like for a peak, yeah.
For a year, yeah.
And that was the thing is too, that was a revised forecast. So they came slightly under the revised forecast,
right?
Because initially they wanted to do 25, which 25 would have been nuts.
Of a $500 system,
yeah. That's the thing too. Like it's a higher average spend per box, so I mean they're just making money hand over fist with this thing, basically.
The PS5 is now at 59.3 million systems sold. And Daniel Ahmed did note on X that the PS5 is outselling the Xbox Series this past quarter specifically 5-1. And I think that was eye-opening. I saw everyone comment on that. They're like, whoa, wait a minute, what?
That was wild. 5-1. So it's like 800,000 the last quarter for Xbox, right? About 800,000.
Yeah.
That'd be what about 5-1 would be. That's down bad. I don't know.
Selling less than 1 million systems in a quarter is like, whoa, hold on a minute.
That's like Wii U-ish better, but you're getting in that territory, which is you don't want to be in that territory. So yeah, it was just eye-opening. I didn't know. I knew the Xbox wasn't selling as well, but I didn't know it was. I didn't know. I thought it was at least 1.5 million, something like that per the quarter. I didn't know it was less than 1 million.
Yeah, I don't think the Xbox Series is going to outsell the Xbox One. I'll say that. Go ahead, Ryan.
That's disappointing. I was just going to say that historically, like Europe's where that's usually where you'll see like the whole 5-1 number. Like certain countries, it's like it's not even close, but they still do really good in America. This is like a global number apparently of like being outsold 5. That's tough. That's really. I'm like, I don't know. I guess like everybody else, I'm surprised. Like I don't know. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I feel like the series consoles are awesome. I love them.
No, the system itself is good.
Yeah.
No, the system's good.
I just didn't really care for Xbox One. And I'm like, this thing's so much better. Like this is going to be like, oh, it's the laundry list of like everything, like the problems the company has or whatever. But I just still think on paper, like it's like, if you're an Xbox person, like I think this is good hardware.
No, the hardware is great. This is the best hardware that they've had. This is like the best overall hardware. Xbox Series X is fast. It's got smart delivery. It's got all these different cool things. But they didn't release a single game, right? In the past There's been no.
They went like a whole what 2022 was not good for
Yeah,
them.
Hellblade's
that
the
was a rough
first.
year.
Yeah, Hellblade's the first game for the year, so there's no, there's no first party big releases for them this whole year so far.
They also don't have the willingness like Sony does, where Sony will sign basically a third party like a Square to make a Final Fantasy IV, or partner for Stellar Blade with Shift Up. Like Microsoft just doesn't really push that much for it. They used to, they did.
And the thing about it too, it's like also this is obviously Xbox gets some of these games, but it's almost like de facto. If you look at the sales ratios, it's almost like de facto exclusives for some of the titles, right? Like if you look at like a Dragon, most people are going to be playing that. That's going to be like PlayStation 5, like that type of game, or most people are going to be buying it on there. I mean, they had Grand Blue, which it wasn't a paid exclusive, but it was just exclusive to console wise on PS4 and PS5. Right. They had Persona. That was Game Pass, right? But on PlayStation, it's like paid. Most people that bought that game, they bought it on PS5. So there was a lot of things that people just bought on PS5 that just did millions, or whatever the case is. So I don't know. It's just
you're right.
Rough. Yeah,
it's the consequence of install base.
Yeah,
especially
exactly. Yeah.
Like for for the third party thing, absolutely. It's because if Sony's gonna money had a third party, ideally these things typically are they're gonna give that publisher the amount of money that would offset not shipping elsewhere. Mm-hmm. So if you're the lead, this is already just a favorable check that you have to cut out. Mm-hmm. If you're Microsoft, you have to offset PlayStation sales. That's a lot of money you're gonna drop.
There's no way they can't. Yeah. There's no way they can't. Yeah,
they could though. This is Microsoft.
They could, but it'd be it would be the developer or the publisher would have to be insane to take that. You're gonna screw yourself over for the next game. If the next game comes out and you don't want to get your talons in that base, right? You're gonna kind of screw yourself over if you're launching a game and it's not on PlayStation. PlayStation is the default system for a lot of these games. So if you don't have it on there, you get that money right now. But what about your next title? You missed out. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think that with a lot of these titles, they're not going to do that. But Microsoft could. They did it before. They did it in the 360 era like crazy. Tales of Vesperia. That was Tales has always been on PlayStation and or GameCube or other things, and they just said no, it's going to be on Xbox for a bit. Star Ocean was PlayStation, and they just said, oh, Star Ocean exclusive for a bit. So they've done it before, you're right. But they haven't done that in a while, though, right? They don't really. Oh, they did it a little bit in the Xbox One era, but not with.
I was going to say, I think the last one would have been Tomb Raider, right?
Tomb Raider, yeah, Tomb Raider. I was thinking Tomb
Raider.
Was a big deal.
Although, unless you want to also count, what's that Square game? But it also shipped on Switch.
Octopath.
Yeah, Octopath.
Oh, Octopath.
Because that was kind of,
I remember
they
apparently got a specific port done for Xbox, apparently is what happened, and that's why it was only on the Xbox and not on PlayStation.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Yeah.
It's not like a true exclusive, but typically nowadays exclusivity just means not the other guy. So it says to them it's who cares if it's on Switch? As long as it's not on, PlayStation 5.
I don't know. So they paid specifically for that.
Apparently the port, they had a company specifically do it. It's the word, and that's why it's not on PlayStation.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because Octopath 2 came and Octopath 2, I guess it's coming to Is it on Xbox now? Or?
It's coming to Xbox soon. It should be on Xbox before the end of the year.
But it didn't launch. It didn't launch.
It's very weird. Yeah, the Octopath thing is weird, across the board.
Yeah, it's super weird.
It's just get the Switch. Apparently, you're good. There you go. You can play both.
Although, Tomb Raider's that last one, and they got a lot of heat for that.
I remember that. Yeah, that was a big deal.
Yeah. That was a big.
Cost them a lot of money too.
And I think it ended up They kind of wanted something to go head to head with Uncharted. Remember? And I think Uncharted got delayed that year, right?
It got delayed. Well, it got delayed every year.
Well, I meant because they wanted to have a big game together for Xbox to go against Uncharted. I think I remember Uncharted getting delayed. So it was funny. It was oh well. Didn't really matter, I guess, but they were going to do it anyway. But
in fairness, their cutting check thing is Game Pass, so it's it's on the other guy. But guess what? If you're on us, it comes with your subscription.
You just get it. You can just download it. Yeah. They did also mention, or it looks like it's about aligned with the PS4 now. So they're right there with it currently. If you launch align them, correct, Ryan?
I'm sorry, say it again.
PS5 and the PS, they're like just about even now in terms of
yeah.
sales. If you launch align them, like it's right there.
PS4 is
Oh.
800,000 behind. It
Yeah.
caught up a lot the last 2 years, but like now they're gonna. This is where it's gonna taper off. Like so, the thing I discussed last week on my show was simply that like that was last year was it. That was the peak. So now it's a matter of how much is it going to decay in relation.
You know,
to
I have a question
4.
about that. I have a question about that, Ryan, actually, which we'll get into here in a second because we had. Okay, so did you see the article I believe Kotaku put up where they mentioned that half of PlayStation players right now are not upgraded to the PS5? They're still on PS4, and they tracked like monthly active users that Sony put out there. And then said, these are how many PS5s have sold. These are how many people playing. It's like 118 million or something like that. And like, oh yeah, that half must be on the PS4. Complete disrespect, by the way, Ryan. I understand you're about to get to the PS3 people out there. I get it. Massive disrespect to the PS3 players. Ryan, he has proof that people are still playing that system to this day, and they just completely swept them under the rug.
That Insomniac breach actually did show us like a somewhat recent PS3 number.
Way too many.
It was like over 1 million. Yeah,
that's a lot.
Listen,
a lot.
I was playing Final Fantasy X for a video that I'm doing. I was playing Final Fantasy X via backwards compatibility on my PS3 just the other day.
There you go.
You played the PS2 version on it?
Yeah.
That's interesting. There's a remaster.
No, dude, the PS2 version.
I mean, it hits. I know it hits.
It
Yeah.
looks better. The faces are better done in some respects, but yeah,
I know what you mean. Yeah,
yeah. No, I played and beat the remastered version. I've already played and beat but I wanted to revisit the original.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna throw this in here though, Ryan. So we believe this is monthly active users. Do you think we're in that neighborhood of like? There's a lot of people still on the PS4. Do you buy into that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay.
GTA 6 is coming out fall 2025. Okay. It is not on the PS4. Let's just be honest, looking at this thing. The PS5 is going to sell the majority of Grand Theft Auto 6. All right.
Yeah.
Is it possible that Sony is somewhat surprised and they have a large spike in sales for the PS5 because of that game?
So I'll say this. I think we'll figure that out by the time and this will be a while from now, but like when this fiscal year closes out and then they give us a forecast for that next fiscal year, and that'll cover fall 2025, then you're going to see what they really think. Because in theory, this is the decay. They're expecting 18 million for this fiscal year, which is slightly under the 20 point, whatever. So if they somehow expect like, oh, now it's going to be back up to 20, like, that would be unusual, but not really if it's Grand Theft Auto 6 launching. Right. So
it's interesting to have GTA 6 right there.
Dude, and that's the thing. Like it's an open runway at this point. I mean, my God, especially because they'll have a pro model too.
Yeah. So the most powerful. So I mean, that's what, if you're going to buy, if I'm a person who's really into Grand Theft Auto and I'm like, okay, finally GTA 6, and I go to the store and it's like, there's either the pro PS5 for 600 or there's like the regular one for 500, but the pro plays it way better. I mean, yeah, you're probably going to buy, and then you're going to buy like 8 shark cards and go home happy. So
it's
like the amount of money dumped into that is crazy. So PS5 Pro is small expense then in that case, but it's just such an odd thing to see that pop up with that kind of strength, because it missed the entire PS4 generation. We didn't have GTA 6 there. So it might do that weird thing where we're expecting the bell curve and it just kind of loops right back around.
And now that we're talking about it, I'm starting to think, man, it's because you're right. It's just we went a whole cycle without a mainline entry. This is not the same context as GTA 5 when that came out. Because that was, it was somewhat similar in a way where it's like, oh, well, a year later, the PS4 version comes out and it's not backwards compatible. So a lot of people are just jumping ship right away. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of, big shocker. There's pent up demand for this game. I'm starting to think, yeah, who knows? Maybe they'll move way more than they think.
Oh, it's going to be an incredible launch.
Yeah. Because they're also going to ship a lot of first party games finally during that year too. Mm-hmm. That, and then the following year. So I don't know, maybe at the very minimum, perhaps they'll expect a bigger year than the outgoing year, because this one will be 18 million they're expecting. So maybe they'll be able to beat that number.
Wolverine maybe that year, maybe
2026.
2026. Maybe they get that in the first quarter, 2026. Let's get that in there.
I'd like that. Yeah, that would come into that fiscal year. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, that's the one thing I thought about. It's like, wait, GTA 6, that actually could have a very weird effect on their financials then with that in mind. And then I have to point this out though, because we have a new record for the fastest selling PlayStation first party game ever. Helldivers 2 sold 12 million copies in, what is that, 6 or 7 weeks? 8 weeks?
12.
12. Okay. 12 million copies sold. That is absolutely ridiculous. I was not at the build up to Helldivers 2, if you remember, it almost felt like Sony was just like, okay, get this thing out. Let's go. Let's get it moving. And like, it didn't seem like they were super excited to put that in front of people on any of the showcases, state of plays, anything. It's just like, all right, here it is. All right, keep going.
Really?
And
I thought they showed it a lot.
They did show it, but like, it's like, this is the thing. Like, I was covering this game right up to launch. The sentiment absolutely was like, I don't know, like, this is a niche game. You know what I'm saying? Like, this was PS3, PS4, Steam, Vita. What, like the peak player count for Helldivers 1 before Helldivers 2 shipped, mind you, was like a few thousand, I think it was. So nobody saw this. No, Sony didn't see it. Arrowhead didn't see it. Nobody saw this coming.
I think this means for Sony's aspirations for PC now, because they also did the update saying that they were going to enhance their enhancement of first party software and PC deployment. You got to assume they looked at Helldivers 2 and were like, oh wow, like half of that is on PC minimum.
Well, I don't think there's anything surprising about that. That's what they've been doing. So like, people are wondering, well, like, oh, what does that mean? Like, it means they'll keep doing what they've been doing. They're shipping PC games.
You think they roll the dice and take a shot at a big first party single player game, narrative driven style game on there, day and date?
I'll say it again. I feel like the only reason why they haven't is, well, they've again been partly conservative, just making sure it doesn't cut into their standard console hardware business, but more so like there's just no pipeline. If they wanted to do it tomorrow, they just can't. These studios still primarily have been console devs for more than 10 years on PlayStation for most of the first party teams that are owned by Sony. They do not have that pipeline. Naughty Dog is a great example of this. They tried shipping part 1 on PC. Look how that happened. They just, like, if they want it to, they can't. So I think eventually they will get there, but we already knew a while ago, actually, from Herman Hulst. This was like, I think 2 years ago, where he said live service games are day and date, and then single player games will be about a 2 year delay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. But also, like, Helldivers, it's the right type of live service game. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's built well compared to other ones like Suicide Squad or some of these other games. People feel it's pretty fair with its microtransactions and like with its monetization method and what you get in the game. So that's, I think, if anything, they can learn a lot from that, saying, hey, we don't need to sit here and be aggressive with how we do this, do this type of like live service game. Like, we can put more content in there and make it, and people will spend money on it. Plus it's paid too, right? Like, it's a like, you still have to pay for it. So not only are the devs actually getting paid, it's not just free to play, situation. Devs are actually getting paid. Plus you also have the other stuff. So I think that model works pretty well. Don't do it full price, do it like 30, 40, whatever. And then have enough content in there. And then of course you can have your season passes and microtransactions and all that, just as long as you get enough good base content. It doesn't take a million years to unlock everything,
You're right.
Those sales numbers definitely show why Sony was so quick to turn around a bit on that PSN sign-in requirement then. So I didn't realize it was like that. Like 6 million potentially plus on the PC. Jeez.
Yeah, we heard it was like about, not strictly half, but like maybe a 60-40, maybe 65-35 to PC, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you see those numbers, you're like, okay, now I understand why they were like, okay, yeah, no, we don't have to do that now. Never mind. We don't, this game is wildly successful for us. We're gonna play this differently. So that's Yeah, it's Sony's financials. It's interesting. We'll see how they do the rest of this fiscal year because they got to get to their showcase and start announcing some stuff. And I think that's set up in the next 2 weeks, maybe. So here's hoping. They have two business meetings. Ryan, let me know. There's 2 business meetings coming up too.
Yep.
So don't know how much that's going to include PlayStation, if at all, but
It will.
okay.
The business segment briefing will be just that. So each segment for the Sony group are going to do a presentation. SI is going to have their own, which now I imagine that's going to be Herman Hulst and Eric Lempel, maybe Lin Tao. I don't think Hideaki Nishino ever does any sort of public speaking, so he probably won't do anything, but maybe he'll start doing it now. But they'll absolutely talk PlayStation bottom line. We'll get some juicy stuff out of there.
Oh, okay, cool. I wonder if they'll actually recognize PSVR 2 again.
Well, I suspect they won't say anything because whatever they have to say about it's probably not good.
Well,
yeah, I'm shocked they gave us sales numbers. This is actually what they gave us the sales numbers at the last business segment briefing. That's how we have the 600,000 figure where it was like doing slightly better.
oh, that's where that's
yeah.
okay. That's where that's from. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. That we are going to get stuff out of this, but this is one of those things where, they'll tell you what investors want to hear. So they'll, say all the nice things about PlayStation, but if there's anything bad to say, they'll obfuscate that info or just not say anything like they do now for PS Plus numbers, or PSVR is a great example here. I don't think they're going to say anything.
Just pretend it didn't happen.
Either that or it's like a slide that just says, here's some partners. And yeah, they're not going to, yeah.
They just got to show some bar graphs without the X or Y axis and yeah.
I don't think they'll do that. The first graph they showed, like how it's like, look at the launch first 6 weeks. It did better than PSVR. You could see it just about to, like, it was about to hit. Like it can't reach, it can't keep up with the first PSVR. I'm like, that's not good.
Well, let's shift over. I will move over to Square Enix, then we'll take a look at some of the super chats for anyone in the chat who was asking. Square Enix is they're making some changes. They have a 3-year reboot process that they've announced, which absolutely destroyed their stock, probably because they're like, hey, in 3 years we'll be ready to roll, but it's gonna be kind of a quiet 3 years. Well, I don't say quiet because I think they'll have Kingdom Hearts in there, but like they're not. A lot of their big titles are going to be going through some changes because, according to Takashi Machizuki, Final Fantasy 16 sales fell short of expectations. Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth sales fell short of expectations. Foam Stars fell short of expectations.
It lit the world on fire.
I double checked just to make sure. Yes, Foam Stars fell short of expectations. I actually am surprised that game it sounds bad. I'm surprised that game's still up. Like the way we see live service games get crushed immediately if they underperform even a little bit.
You should check, John. Check right now to make sure.
Dude, I'm telling you, this podcast might be out of date by next week at this rate with live service games. I'm telling you, I don't know anyone who. I don't see anyone ever talk about that game. I don't know if people are even playing it.
How quickly did they close Babylon's Fall?
Dude, that's a year.
That was half a year.
That was
half a year.
8 to 10 months or something like that.
Yo,
it might be like the fastest turnaround, actually.
Can I tell a real quick story of Babylon's Fall? It was so funny. I remember Maximilian Dude was playing it, and it was a sponsored stream, and like literally the whole chat was like, "This shit is ass," and he was just playing the game. He was like not responding to it.
Yeah,
and it was so funny.
As Sean would say, get the bag.
And he was just playing. He was just playing, and he was commenting on it, but he was just looking at the chat. Was just like, well, and it was just so funny because Max carries a big crowd of people that watch him play. The whole chat was just bashing this game. People were saying, "I wonder how long this game is gonna be alive." It was just funny.
But Square Enix's new strategy hinges primarily on a multi-platform strategy, and they say they're going to aggressively pursue multi-platform, which includes Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. They did say Nintendo platform specifically, apparently, so they're looking towards Nintendo's next system, since Nintendo themselves have also acknowledged that system being announced in the next 10 months or so, probably sooner than that. But either way, this is interesting because they've had this long relationship with Sony, where we have things like Rebirth and 16 specifically on the PlayStation, and then eventually goes to PC. But it does kind of seem like they're looking around like, okay, this isn't and they have a new CEO now, with Kiru, who I guess they're looking at the numbers and maybe they're thinking, hey, Final Fantasy might do better having it on as many platforms as possible and overtake the amount that Sony is covering for the development here. So I am curious how Square Enix navigates this, because they said they have 3 years. We're going to work this out. And I wonder if Final Fantasy 17 is just on everything, like just across the board, Xbox, PC, PlayStation, Nintendo Switch 2. I don't know. That's going to be interesting.
I mean, it makes sense, this business strategy. I mean, I think that if the Final Fantasy games, right, if those sold crazy amounts on PlayStation, like if they sold 10 million, because that's what I thought. Like when I know that was probably stupid to think that, but when FF7 Remake was first coming out, I'm thinking to myself, this game's going to sell like, 10 million instantly right off the bat, or something. So it still did good. FF7 Rebirth, we don't know the sales of that, right? They didn't say. We know they didn't give us an update on.
I think that's telling, though.
Yeah, it's telling. No, it's telling. They usually let us know. By now, we usually know the sales numbers of most like Final Fantasies that I can track back. We always get this of major Final Fantasy games. We usually know the sales numbers, but they haven't said anything. But I think that it makes sense if you look at all the the landscape in Japan. Look at Atlas. Look at Capcom. Look at Sega, Atlas and Sega, same company, whatever. But look at all of them and see what they're doing. Persona finally went multi-platform. It broke 10 million units, Persona 5. Look at Capcom with Monster Hunter and what that's been able to do, how they've been able to grow that business multi-platform with Whirlwind. That used to be really weird, exclusive here for a portable, sometimes PSP or sometimes this, sometimes that. So they went multi-platform with that and had huge success. So it makes sense for your biggest AAA IPs to do that at this point. At this point it makes sense. I think it made sense to do exclusives at the time that they were planning all of this, considering the type of hardware Nintendo had out at the time and how Xbox, the sales, how that goes. Most of the sales of Final Fantasy 15 were on PlayStation, so it made sense. But Final Fantasy 15 was still a multi-plat game that did better than most of their Final Fantasy games, so I think it makes sense what they're doing. Look at Nier. Nier Automata has gotten more sales since it came out on Xbox, and then the Switch version picked up a number of sales as well. So it makes sense to do it multi-plat. Dragon Quest is a massive seller on all the different. It's on everything, and I think that sold over 7 million or something like that, 6 or 7 million units for Dragon Quest 11S. So just one of those things,
I do want to point out one of their other parts of the strategy was to consolidate down and not try to focus on they call these things, they call them HD games and SD games. That's how they refer to, I guess, AA or AAA. I don't know.
They refer to AA games and mobile games as SD games. That's what they refer to as SD. Yeah.
So they mentioned that rather than focus on a bunch of SD games and release them, they would do fewer games and really put in a lot of effort on the HD games. And at one point, they were releasing way too much. So in like 2022, I remember this vividly, this run that they had where September 22nd, they released the Diofield Chronicle. And many people still don't know that game even exists or came out. Like if you ask them, they have no idea. That's the one that I still have that one trophy I'm missing in, by the way, Ryan, is Diofield Chronicle. And the following week, on the 29th of September, they released Valkyrie Elysium. So, okay, then they had Triangle Strategy hit Windows on October 13th. Star Ocean: The Divine Force dropped for all platforms other than the Switch, October 27th. Harvestella then came out on the Switch November 4th. Tactics Ogre Reborn came out on all platforms November 11th. Final Fantasy VII Reunion Crisis Core that came out December. Dragon Quest Treasures came out December 9th. Romancing Saga came out December 1st. This is all happening in the course of like 3 months or something. It was crazy. And they're like, I don't understand why you flooded the market. I don't understand why you don't know that. Like it's so weird to see them do that and then go, oh yeah, all these games. By the way, none of these games hit expectations. So
not a single one.
I would love to see the sales for Diofield Chronicle because I feel like no one bought that game.
17 units. No, I mean, they did say with their some people are a little bit worried about, oh, does this mean, what happened to Dragon Quest 3 and stuff like that. So if you go a little bit further in their report, they said that they are still going to do the SD or AA games, but they're going to focus on profitability. So the games that actually do well will get more. So Octopath does well, Triangle Strategy that did okay. That did 1 million plus. They were happy with that. I think Live Alive did like 500,000 plus, which was okay for that. So I think they'll focus on the games that they know they can sell when it comes to AA and mobile stuff. And then it's going to be the Harvestellas. It's going to be the Dio Fields.
Yeah, those probably won't exist. Yeah,
those are probably going to get the cut, overall. So we'll see what happens with Valkyrie. I mean, Valkyrie Profile Lenneth is really good. And I think if they want to make like a HD 2D, like new Valkyrie Profile game, that would be pretty cool. So I think that could be an option for them. But there are previous like Valkyrie Profile games. I think there's one on the PS2 that's pretty good. So maybe they remaster that and put it out and see what people think about that. Because Valkyrie Profile or Valkyrie Elysium, that one didn't do well because like they changed the type of gameplay. Like Valkyrie Profile fans want the Valkyrie Profile gameplay. After a long time, we haven't had a Valkyrie Profile game. Nobody asked for an action RPG, like a bad Devil May Cry game. You know what I'm saying? Like, is this the bad Devil? It's not terrible. I played the game. I mean, it's not terrible. It's just not. People were hoping for like the whole map each character to a button and get that because people were excited about Valkyrie Profile Lenneth coming back, the PS1 game being kind of like remastered a little bit and all that. So and that game was awesome. That game's way better than Valkyrie Elysium, and that's a PS1 title. So. Bad market research on their hand. They should have made a real Valkyrie Profile game, in my opinion, at least.
They'll probably double down on well-known IPs as well. But Hexaroot did ask something interesting in the Discord, Patreon, saying, "Do you think Final Fantasy VII Part 3 will remain PlayStation exclusive? I'm not sure if that's still under contract with Sony funding and help."
Yeah, it is, right? It wasn't a deal.
I assume it is.
Yeah, that's a deal.
I think it's a 3-game deal. I think it's for the trilogy. I don't think all of a sudden they're because they're apparently that game's coming out even faster than Rebirth came out. Rebirth came out in just under 4 years, which was pretty impressive for a game of that size. I think they're going to get the third one out in like 3 years. So that'll be out probably by 2027, and then they'll figure out what they're going to do from there. 17 is the one you want to keep an eye on. I assume that's on everything. Like I feel like they're going to try to get on Nintendo's next platform, so they have that staple in Japan, which that's at this point, if you want to sell to a large audience in Japan, you got to put it on Nintendo's platform. Then also, like Ryan mentioned, like Europe, so that's PlayStation country right there. You just want to make sure you're out on PlayStation. So if you're Sony, how do we know it wasn't Sony who went, you know what? I don't know if we need to fund this next one like that. Do we have to? Because these things aren't selling necessarily. Like, I do wonder if 7 Rebirth or 16 moved PS5 consoles like that. Like, if that was the thing that got the PS5 system moving. I don't know, because we hear that they're missing expectations and stuff. I mean, these aren't cheap for Sony to necessarily fund and put effort into.
I don't think it moved too many. I think people were just buying PS5 because it's the default platform to buy for third-party games, like all the other games. I mean, I'm pretty sure some people did. People bought it for Final Fantasy 16 and all that, but the games that do the best, it's the big multi-platform games. People are buying it for GTA 5. People are buying it for NBA. People are buying it for FIFA, or is it called FC now? I think it's called FC. People are buying it for FC. It's just the default platform for most big third-party games, and also Sony's first part, like their big trip, like they're buying it for the what was it? What did I see? Of course, Call of Duty. That's not first party, but God of War, Ragnarok, things like that. The games that are selling 10 million plus, Horizon, stuff like that. Or Horizon's not 10 million plus yet, but I think it's close to it or getting near it.
It's 8 million.
Yeah, 8. But that's an old number though, right?
It's old, but it probably slowed down a lot because they put the game on Plus after a year.
Oh, the newest game is on Plus?
Forbidden West came out on PS Plus Extra like almost a year after directly.
I forgot. Anyway, but those are like the biggest sellers, I think, that are really pushing things. Obviously, Spider-Man 2
is the big one.
Yeah, Spider-Man 2. So that's why. So I mean, I personally think those are the reasons why. And then of course the big third party games.
If you're Sony, you're getting the game anyway. It's not like Square's gonna be like, well, now we're not making them for the PlayStation 6.
It's still gonna sell probably the most on PlayStation overall.
Probably.
So
most likely. So that's that was just something that crossed my mind. How do you know Sony wasn't like, nah, we're good, and then Square's like, oh, we're multi-platform now. Here we go. It was obviously our choice.
I was gonna say it's probably getting to a point where it's just mutually beneficial for everybody anyway.
Mm.
Because if we're looking at this like platform split, that's like diminishing more and more for like what used to be Sony's closest competitor. I mean, if you're Sony, you might not even like. Why would we pay? We don't have to pay for it now.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to
they
buy
honestly
it here.
take a smaller role and do marketing maybe or something like that, right? Get it in a state of play and
just get a marketing. Just do the marketing rights where when you see the commercials, it just says PlayStation.
I mean, they're talking about like Sony engineers helping out with the game and stuff too, like 16. So it's there's money, and then there's also just like developers helping too. So it's a lot for Sony. So there's something that crossed my mind, potential that Sony was maybe the one who thought, we're good. Do what you want with 17. So, and I had to bring this up, Ryan. I had to bring this up because this is big news for all the PS2 people out there. PS2 emulator is final. It seems like it's slated to hit the PS5 and PS4 and PS4 and PS4. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure because the rumors floating around that maybe the PS4 was acting up a bit and that was causing an issue. But now the PS2, Star Wars Clone Wars is the one apparently, which is weird.
That's not
Disney's going to debut the emulator.
Disney's been like the biggest fan of PlayStation Plus and classic games, it seems.
What's the PS2 game that people want?
What do you mean?
What's the PS2 game that people want? What should we get in here?
I'd like to see the first
look, Star Wars Clone Wars is cool, but like, come on. Think about PS2 games that maybe ran at a lower frame rate or had like the resolution was like so low. You're like, I don't know what's going on the screen necessarily. I was trying to think of a few that they could throw out there, like Killzone.
Killzone, Legacy of Kain series would be really good to bring in.
Oh, interesting. Okay, Legacy of Kain, that is a good one.
So I was going to say this. I would not make a laundry list because the way that this program works, there's just very little publisher support.
We're gonna get what they get. That's
nobody wants to sign up for this.
No, yeah, I don't doubt it.
I'm sure Sony is doing well. I'm not sure if it's Sony doing most of the like approaching or if it's exactly implicit conversions, but like nobody wants to join. Like that's why it's all Disney stuff because Disney's like, yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah, another Star Wars PS1 game, another Star Wars PS1 game, another Star Wars PSP game. We'd love to give you Disney's
Toy
Pixar
Story
up for PSP. Like what the? Come on!
How did we get up on there?
Like Disney's Pixar up for PSP. Jesus Christ! What are we doing?
I could just see it, just bringing it up to a room of developers, and the Disney guy in the far back. It's just like, woo!
You don't remember spinning
what
that?
What are you talking about? That's
into oblivion.
Certified hit classic on that one, right? What you talking about, brother? Huh?
Look, I think the best case like short-term thing that we should get that like actually like Ratchet, God of War, Sly Cooper. These are PlayStation 2 staples, and they're basically not on the console because if they were, they'd be streaming because you'd be streaming the PS3 remaster. So those are probably the best candidates because at least Sony IP, they're doing good with that. They'll also put up Sony IP. We just had more going in and. What, 2 days now? Yeah, 2 days.
So SOCOM? They could pull SOCOM in.
Maybe.
I was I looked at a few and I was trying to figure out the debut one to put on there outside of this Disney game, right? And I realized that Microsoft's in pretty good right now, right? About putting their games on other platforms. What else to debut in PlayStation Plus other than the Activision worldwide published Orphan? And drop that right in there.
That's the one you choose.
Hey, that's a classic right there. 54 on Metacritic. That's the move. I just remember getting that game when I was younger and it was terrible. Let's see. We got like Shadow Hearts. I'm thinking of like expensive PS2 games that people are just not going to want to ever have to buy.
Shadow Hearts is good.
Shadow Hearts would be cool to have in there. I'd be okay with that.
Well, it's like we can look at the PS1 and PSP games they've done so far, and that'll give us an idea of like, at the very least, okay, these publishers did it before. Maybe they'll do it again. So that's like Capcom, Bandai Namco,
Maximo,
Oddworld Inhabitants. I think there's a Natsume game on there with Harvest Moon, and then something else like Disney. So
Some
it's-
weird Shadow of Rome.
Yeah, it's going to be a tight list. That and this company's like not big, the company that primarily does it. So I think they're just kind of like there's just like a ceiling anyway. Like every month, it's still going to be like 3 games maybe.
Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law.
It's a solid
the
show.
PSP one.
Pretty decent game.
It's a PS2 game, apparently.
Oh, I thought it had a PSP version.
Cool.
Maximo.
I want to see that
That's a
game.
classic. Hey,
You gotta get that.
Another certified classic. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
Mega Man X Command mission. I hope they have some surprise. Oh, what about do Haunting Ground? That'd be cool.
So there's already
I'll say again, none of you guys
There's
know
a lot
that.
of disappointment. A lot of disappointment about the follow up with these PS2 games. I can already feel it.
There's a game that none of you guys have probably ever played. Maybe somebody in the chat has. It's called Bujengai: The Forsaken City. That game. They bring that game over.
I want that one back.
Have you eever played it, Ryan?
Who published it?
I don't remember. I just remember playing it.
This guy's just throwing names out.
You want to tell me about this game you're laughing about uncontrollably?
No, it's good, dude. No, it's a good game. It's like Double
I don't know.
Is it?
You're acting suspect. I don't like it.
No, it's a good game. What do you think?
Did you buy this at a grocery store or something? Like, was this just like a weird?
Oh,
I
store?
did. I bought it at like one of those discount food stores.
Yeah, you did.
Oh gosh.
What's it called? I gotta look this up. What is it?
Bujengai: The Forsaken City.
Yeah, it's
You
a
look
good
that up.
game,
I'm gonna
dude.
go through some of the super chats here.
Check it out. I like it.
Okay, here we go.
Taito. It's a Taito game.
Yeah.
Oh. Cody Bishop says listening to Toy Soldiers. Andy says juice. Mighty Ryan says COD is boring. Bring back Army Men. Oh, Army Men on the. I remember playing that on the
Army
N64.
That was
That
great.
was Sarge's Heroes. That was a classic. It was that
You
and
could-
Battle Tanks.
You could get good enough that you could actually tell the difference in shade in the fog to be able to shoot people way in the distance. I kept pissing off all my
What
friends.
do we got to do to
doing
get
that.
Battle Tanks on the NSO? You play that online. That would be awesome.
I mean, now that's just World of Tanks at this point.
Something about that time though, man. Let's see. Zoob says Weebs are going to Ubisoft Japan's YouTube to downvote the trailer and use Google Translate to upvote comments who hate it. Pathetic. Tim Allen says Earth Defense Force 6, July 2024, Game of the Year. I fell out of the Earth Defense Force stuff a long time ago. Man,
Pretty sure Sean will get it day one. It's a good game.
he did get Endless Ocean. Dark Type says, finally an RGT85 bath stream. He lasted, you know what? He was here longer than I thought he would be, and in a pair in the bathtub. The Dark Type says, Nintendo going into the new generation next year. Would you like to see a revamped NSO similar to Game Pass and PlayStation Plus with games added monthly and more? You mean outside of the retro stuff now? I mean, they still have maybe GameCube to get to.
I would love to see them do more systems, like old school systems, you know, GameCube, 3DS if they could, DS, whatever they can get in there. But I don't think they'll ever add like, you know, their big first party games, but maybe some of the older big first party games.
Make a
they can
deal
add.
with Sega, get Dreamcast in there.
Yeah. I mean, they do DLC. They do like you can get like the Mario Kart DLC or stuff like that. So that'd be pretty cool if like they continue doing that. But yeah, I'd be down for like GameCube and Dreamcast, other systems.
Section says, is that picture of Kid Smooth?
It is. It's his skit that he does where he's like,
South Central. Yes, has
Yeah.
screen to shadow. That threw me off when I saw that picture.
those skits are actually pretty funny though. They're pretty funny.
There's Liza, Phil Spencer. Oh, nice. Look at a Photoshop of Phil and Liza P. Wow. Tim Allen says, will Sony make a PS Vita 2 or something very esque? There's a new rumor going around that they apparently are working on a handheld, but it said it was going to play PS4 games. But Ghost of Tsushima technically is a PS4 game, so I guess it's maybe in that vein, like that kind of visual style. Yes, I would like a handheld, and yes, Ryan would probably also like a handheld as well. So there you go. And OJ would probably like a handheld. You know what? We all like handhelds. Go ahead and release it, Sony.
Yeah,
That'll
I mean, I bought the Portal. I don't use it, so I definitely. So I absolutely buy if it's like an actual real handheld that
FGC says, I didn't see anyone complain when Jean Reno was in Onimusha 3. Personally, don't trust Ubisoft in terms of being anti-consumer.
Shout out to FGC Hitman.
Cat is back. Became a member. Shout out to Cat is back. This thing just scrolled down. Hold on. There we go. Trombita says, so when is Microsoft buying Sega? People are looking at those. I remember a while ago, people were like doing all kinds of speculation that Microsoft was buying Sega. Good thing, I think that didn't happen now, looking at what happened with some of those studios. Here for the meme says Call of Duty is on Game Pass. When? Just got here. Well, you probably see it announced next month at the showcase based on the report. Brian says, yo, from Ireland, is the Switch the best console among the Xbox Series, PS5, and Switch in terms of games and ecosystem and all that? In terms of first party games that are just on that system, it's going to be hard to argue because the Switch's like library is kind of ridiculous. Like it's pretty. I'm trying to think. Yeah, it might have in terms of just first party games that are just on that system and not like cross gen or anything. Yeah, I don't really know if there's a system that necessarily compares to it. Maybe you could look at the PS2 just because of the massive amount of third party games that went to it. But
I thought he was just talking about.
But like just in general
PS5.
for like games overall,
Okay.
For that. But like for first party, it's hard to find a comparison for it. It's just so many games got dropped on that system from Nintendo's history, and then also from like newer titles. Proud Penguin says Xbox has started up a program for game preservation for the future. They should start up a program for game studio preservation for the future. IO. Best wishes, Arcane and Tango. Nicholas says Hellblade 2 LRG release when becoming multiplat. Yeah, I think Ryan's onto something with that. If you see Hellblade 2 go to the PS5, all of a sudden, hey, there's limited run like they did with they're doing that with Hi-Fi Rush. So I'm trying to get.
How long do you think it'll be before you get the copies of that game when you pre-order
it?
Yeah,
3 years. You'll have the next Xbox by then.
Hopefully, the PS6 is backwards compatible. Christian says, "I'm here for some Fire Emblem education from OJ."
Yeah, I heard you guys messed up Fire Emblem last week. I knew it. It
was the we were
It's
talking
just
about
Fire
games
Emblem.
coming up, and I think it was like the new Fire Emblem game.
Fire Emblem Forge. You know, those are the Holy War. That's the remake.
There we go,
boys and girls.
There we go. OJ's here. Let's see. Pretty Dude says, which of the two new PlayStation CEOs handled the layoffs? I guess it depends on where the layoffs are.
Yeah,
the
both
region,
of them, probably.
Probably, yeah, both of them. Cillian Gamer says Xbox's unsustainable strategy of buying up and mismanaging developers, then laying them off is terrible for gaming. They deserve to fail. Colin was right. Silver Strike says, any of the Spawncast going to too many games. I will be there. Ryan will be there.
Still working out.
Evan may be there.
Still working out.
Is the room situation all dealt with, or
I thought talking to OJ with like his green screen.
No.
For too many games with the like, hotels and stuff.
Yeah, if I swing down or up rather, would we? I guess we have enough rooms and everything. I don't have to like.
Yep, we got rooms.
All right,
we got rooms. I didn't know if you're just gonna go for a day and then like leave.
I might go for a couple days. I don't know.
Okay, cool. Tim Allen says, does anyone know that DC still gets indie games? DC Dreamcast. Oh, the Dreamcast.
Yeah,
it does. Yep, they still release like different indie games. You can a lot of times they'll even just put certain games like Homebrewers put online. You can just download them and play them on the Dreamcast. Adam says thoughts on the news that Redfall is. Will actually be getting its final patch that will include the offline mode. Yeah, that's good to see. It sounded like they were working on Redfall up until legitimately 0 hour and shut down, and they were unaware. But I guess they looked at that and said the patch is almost done, so we might as well get it out there. So I assume they're going to run up to the end of May and have that patch put out. So there you go. Redfall will be playable offline.
I can finally play the game now.
Well, a lot of people I know who played the game got a couple hours in and they were out.
Listen, I bought it for $5. Okay.
Oh,
I went to I installed it, booted it up, and it was like, make an account for it. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And I just turned it off.
Dude, that wall, man, that happens to a lot of people. Dude.
I
When
said,
it
"No,
starts
I'm
asking
good."
you to go sign up somewhere else, it's like, oh no.
And I'm not kidding you. I just went to my playlist of all of you guys' videos and just started watching videos instead. And just lied down, fell asleep watching videos.
We did play through that game, and I told you the percentages of those achievements got to like the 0.25% towards the end. So I don't blame you. No one really beat that game. B says, I have a PS3, PS4, PS5, and I still use my PS3 whenever I want to play old PS1 digital and physical games. Oh, okay. So for RE, DC, Silent Hill, and GT2 are my faves.
That's king behavior right there. King behavior.
PS3 is still legit PS1. This is very good for that. Denizen of Light says, Square thought it was still 1997. T-Joe says, I just really hope that none of those canceled Square Enix games are Star Ocean Blue Sphere R or Bahamut Lagoon HD 2D. Well, it might have been.
Were those
I
games
have a good
announced?
chance they were axed.
No, I don't think. I mean, if Bahamut Lagoon was even pitched and they're like looking it around for cuts, I gotta tell you, that's probably one of the games getting cut. I don't know. That's it doesn't have a final or a fantasy anywhere in the title, so it's kind of an issue. Nick says 5-1. Wild. Don't think Xbox can do that much longer. A lot of questions around their hardware right now, but maybe Call of Duty will revive it. Or Indiana Jones. Jorge says it's funny how people compare Nintendo and Sony's exclusive games as if they had the same development budgets and marketing. Well, yeah, I mean, we know Sony Spider-Man was upwards of $300 million. Spider-Man 2. I'd be curious to see how much Zelda costs. That's the one Nintendo game I look at and I'm like, I wonder how what kind of budget
somebody
this
did a
was.
really good breakdown. A channel called Nintendo Forecast did a really good breakdown of how much it did, and I forgot exactly what he said, but I think it was based off of just his research, public information. I think it was around 100 million something.
Okay.
Around
Okay.
that.
That's quite a bit for Nintendo with a sequel like that. Like because they still used a lot of the assets and map from the older. Like that's not cheap for Nintendo to do that. So Kevin says for physical, why cut off a stream of revenue when it still makes money? I don't know the numbers for making and putting, etc. Example, film last year did 2 billion physical. Oh, well. Well, it depends. So Ryan pointed this out subtly, but for certain systems, and I'm just gonna say probably mostly Xbox, there's like a minimum order you have to put in for discs that you buy to then press. And if you look at that and go, we're not going to sell that many, so it feels like we're just throwing the money away, then they're just not going to do it. So the numbers are run behind the scenes by very smart people, and they come out the other side with it's not worth it. So.
Higher margins on digital too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you don't have to worry about it leaking. Just it goes live when it goes live.
This is also true.
Chris VW with a super sticker. Shout out to Chris VW. Oh, Darkland says, have you ever camped out overnight for a new console release? Would you ever do it again? Camped out? I don't know if that counts. I mean, we didn't have a tent. But I was definitely outside for the Wii release. I remember that, like overnight with a bunch of friends.
It's so funny you say Wii. I did Wii as well, but Wii I just like got there like I think 6 a.m. and got a pre-order. So not even like waiting to buy it that day, like just got a pre-order.
I think the line at our Walmart started like 8 o'clock the night before because it was a midnight release. So we ended up. Well, 2 of my friends were there the entire night and like they saved a spot basically. So nice. Like there was somebody there with them who was kind of like in and out, like hanging out and stuff, but they weren't going to buy it. But like I was, so they just kind of held the spot for me. And I ended up being there for probably like 12 or 13 hours outside with them though. But it was outside of Walmart. So it's one of those things where it's easy because you just walk into the Walmart if you need to get food or something. Like it's not. Doesn't feel like a war of attrition waiting outside of a Walmart for a midnight release, really. Yeah. It was cold, though, because it was the Wii, so it was like November. So
I never camped out. I just would always just go there super early in the morning to get a pre-order, and I'd get my pre-order, and then I would just go there. Usually it'd be like a midnight release, so I just get there like an hour or so beforehand and then just pick up my system like whenever.
I'm glad I got the Wii. The Wii was such a crazy time for those 2 years. I'm glad I got mine at launch. So
it was wild.
But yeah, took it home, played Zelda like the rest of the night, and then I played Wii Sports the next day. So
I got Excite Truck.
What?
I didn't get Zelda.
Zelda was right there, and you said, "You know what?
Did you get the
GameCube
GameCube Zelda? That's the better one.
I don't know why. I was like, I kind of want this Excite Truck. I'm not gonna front.
Excite
well,
Truck's
remember,
cool.
I had to get the one on the Wii because the GameCube version didn't launch until like a month or two later or something.
It was a bit,
so I was like, I need the new Zelda game. It's on the Wii. I'm getting, which is good because technically people were buying tons of Wii systems. They were selling them for triple the value like the next day. It was crazy.
They were going for like $900, you know, online and stuff
It was
back then.
ridiculous. Yeah, those things weren't in stock consistently. I think like 3 years into the generation, it was insanity. Yeah. But yeah, that's the one I could think of. The other ones though, yeah, I would show up close to the minute. I think like even like the Xbox. Then eventually you just start pre-ordering stuff like the Series.
Oh yeah, PS4. I could just I just like showed up to one game because I ordered one from Amazon, so I already had one coming. But since I still wanted to do videos like right away, I'm like, well, let me just like go to a GameStop at I think it was 6 p.m. So I didn't have to wait that long because then they did like at 12 a.m. open for them. Although I did go to Grand Theft Auto 4's midnight launch, and I waited outside for that for like 5 hours.
Oh, the better question is the game. We're talking about the system, the games, like the midnight release game. Like people would still wait outside for those things.
Our GameStop was in a plaza, and the GTA 4 line wrapped all the way around the plaza up to the grocery store. That was like way down over, and that was
crazy.
Dude, that was a rowdy line. I was number 2, by the way.
Dude, you know what used to be back in the day would get some pretty big lines. I know it's not anymore, but Madden. I used to go out there and wait for the Madden releases. Yeah, like Madden 04, Madden 04, Madden 05, Madden 06, but Madden 05 in particular. That was the year with NFL 2K, and there was a bunch of 2K people talking shit in the same line but buying the game, which was hilarious. Like, oh, 2K's better. You're online. Yeah, but 2K's freaking better.
Yeah, I remember Madden like 09 is when things really started to get moving for them on the 360 PS3 generation, and so many people would come out for midnight releases for Madden. Like they would try to hold little mini tournaments there and stuff. Like they had a little kiosk with Madden. They would play the little exhibition 2-minute quarter thing and make it a whole tournament. It was crazy back then. But yeah, it is weird how much those trends have changed now. I feel like people don't even go out for Call of Duty midnight releases anymore. And that was massive.
You couldn't pay me to go to a Madden launch.
Nah.
You couldn't pay me to go to one of those things in today's day, bro.
I went to one for Ragnarok.
Oh,
Ragnarok, a lot of people. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, Ragnarok. We're not Madden. Crusty ass Madden.
I guess
it was like.
I mean,
no, it was like 30. It was like 30 minutes prior, and I think like maybe it was about 30 people grouped up.
I feel like I don't even hear that my GameStop around me is even open for midnight releases anymore. Like, sometimes I'll just check and they're not.
Fire Emblem 3 Houses had one right next to me, and it was so funny because I did a lot on that game, so a lot of the people recognize me. That's the only time that I ever got recognized was that time when I went there for it was like 9 p.m. So it was like midnight in the East Coast, but here in California. So there was a number of people that recognized me from that. So that was cool. But that was the last time that I actually went to like a midnight release for anything. So that was 2019.
I'm hoping they do one for maybe the PS5 Pro or the new Nintendo system whenever that comes out next year or something like that. I hope they do a midnight release for those. That'd be really cool to get that at midnight. So we'll see. I feel like the new system for Nintendo would be big enough for them to do that. So
I did go to a midnight release for the Switch. I remember driving I was at work in Los Angeles. I remember driving like 2 hours back just so I can get there at Best Buy. Like around,
I picked it up too because I remember I streamed that night when I got home.
Did you really? Is that
I did an unboxing for it? Yeah.
I want to watch. I didn't see it. I want to watch that.
It's a long time. It feels like an eternity. Another life.
It really does.
Yep. March 3rd, 2017 or whatever. Yeah. A long time ago. Let's see. This is from Tijo. It says, so I guess we're going to see less games developed around a specific platform's gimmicks and features. Exclusive in that sense.
I feel like that doesn't happen often anyway. First party will always do it, but that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'd expect first party to really try to take advantage of that kind of stuff. But third parties are just probably going to try to get it everywhere they can for what things cost now. Let's see. Here we go. TJ says, have you all ever beaten a game on NSO in one sitting without using save states or rewind? I have. I beat Mario World.
I abuse them like they owe me money. I will save state and rewind the crap out of NES games. No shame.
No shame.
I didn't die. Run it back.
Run it back. Kevin says, obviously, digital has their metrics that's mostly making the money right now and that can support that physical and vice versa and keeps the consumer happy. For what's making the news right now to support.
I think it's referencing the why would they get rid of physical
just
over
having
digital.
both.
Well,
Yeah,
that part at the
assume
end where you say can keep consumer happy, they don't care.
Well, I assume they're just going to go until it doesn't make sense for them to ship physically anymore, until the audience decides that that's it. Yeah, so I think we still got another gen in us. I think we still got another one.
It's an economies of scale thing too, I'll say. The less discs you're shipping, it just becomes less and less favorable. It is still a big industry. It's still a billion-dollar industry, but at a certain point, it actually won't be worth it. And it's certainly not to your benefit.
Yeah. Shinru says, hey, Evan, what's the average price for a PC build for gaming and using 3D software like Blender? $2,000 sound about right? Buying for a friend? Thanks.
Depending on where you live, you could probably get something good for $2K. I don't see why.
Yeah, well, we should see some new NVIDIA cards come out here in the second half of this year. And whenever that happens, used cards spike heavily online. Like you'll see a lot of the 4,000 cards get put out there. That's usually the time to strike because those cards typically are less than a year old. And we don't really have to worry about mining and stuff anymore like you did back in the day when the prices were crazy high for crypto. So, yeah, I honestly, if you can hold out a little longer, I think you might see some deals on the 4,000 cards, and those things are incredibly capable. Like I was playing Ghost of Tsushima near 140 frames with a 3080 Ti, so like you'd be fine with a 4,000 series card, like a 4080, no problem. I think that's everything there. I will check Streamlabs though, just to make sure I'm good on that. But I will go around here. Let me start with OJ. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, I mean, right here on YouTube, Player Essence, I do live streams pretty much daily, cover Nintendo and RPG news. I finally did my top 25 RPGs of all time, well, JRPGs of all time. So that video will be tomorrow. I'm pretty sure I'll have it ready to go. So yeah, long time coming, pretty big video. So if you want to check that out, and of course, other RPG content, got all that stuff covered on the channel. Appreciate you guys having me on as well.
Oh, here's a good one for going over to Ryan here. Aloy's boyfriend says, thoughts on Horizon Lego Adventure?
Yeah, it's strange. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
No, Lego weird. Collaboration with Sony first party title is interesting though. It's interesting because it sounds kind of, I mean, it sounds unique for Sony, obviously, not necessarily Lego because they've done a bunch of Lego games, but I'm curious if Sony is really going all in on Horizon, huh?
Yeah, it's a lot. But it's like they established it in 2017. New IP is risky. How often are you going to be able to establish a new IP that sells 20 million? Like sure. It sold 20 million. Like I know some people are like, oh, I'm tired of it sold 20. That's a lot for Sony. Like they'll keep doing it. But I would say, yeah, we're doing a lot of Horizon. I'll say this though too. The Lego thing, at least, it probably happened from Michael Denny. He used to be an SVP at PlayStation. Now he's at TT Games.
Oh,
so I feel like that's maybe how the ball got rolling on that one. Although I'm still not even sure if it's at TT Games because there's a XDev project at Sumo Digital. I just think maybe they've got it. So
Ryan with some inside baseball there. I like it. Very good. Very good. Where can everyone find you, Ryan?
Over on YouTube at Mystic Ryan, covering the world of PlayStation every Friday on LTPS. I'll actually probably talk about this handheld rumor soon, since there actually is a lot of stuff going on there. So we'll probably have a quick discussion about that either tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah, you got to cover that. You absolutely have to.
Yep.
I think there's more and more is formulating around that. So it's that's an exciting proposition, because if it's playing PS4 level games, they might not have to wait till the next generation to launch it. That could just be something they maybe put out before then. So that'd be kind of cool. Evan, where can all the good people find you?
Find me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube at Kimmerix Project if you're into tabletop and such. Try to get some more videos out soon. We usually stream though Mondays, Thursdays, Fridays, get some paint streams going.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I have everyone linked down below in the description as well. People just need to check them out. Liam asks over on Streamlabs, do you think a Breath of the Wild remaster means we won't get free or even paid upgrades and will instead have to buy every game again if we want 4K? Could this also mean potentially no true backwards compatibility?
No, it doesn't mean any of that.
I think we'll have backwards compatibility at this point if we have a cartridge slot that would fit. I have no idea how to handle this 4K stuff, like any of the upgrades.
And I don't think it's going to be any like 4K, like real 4K, or so we need to just slow down a little bit with the whole 4K and all that. So let's just slow down with that. But no, it doesn't mean any of that. I mean, like they can handle it just like it can be handled just like Sony handles it at times, right? Sometimes you have where they made you pay, or it was a free upgrade that has true backwards compatibility. They do remakes of PS4 games. It all just depends. I mean, you can play The Last of Us, right? You can play that backwards compatible if you want, or you can buy the remake of it, right? You can buy the remake of it if you want and pay for it. So I don't think that rumor means all of a sudden it goes into one direction or another, you know?
Okay. And I think I got everything here. Got all Streamlabs. Yep, we are good. Thanks everyone for joining us for the Spawncast. We'll be back next Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We should have many of the others joining us again, returning, Josie, MVG, and those. So it should be a lot of fun. We'll catch you guys then.